Sometimes when something doesn't work out, it's life protecting you. There is something better waiting. That's why it didn't work out, and the universe or God or whatever you believe in is protecting you. And I get goosebumps when I think about this. And also, I actually put a bit of research into this. It's so crazy, but there is science that shows that Welcome back to another episode of Truly Well. I'm so excited for today's episode because I absolutely love when other people do these, where they share their life lessons or things they would like to tell their younger selves. And I turned 30 a few months ago. And since then, I've been assembling a list of 30 life lessons I learned by the age of 30. So I had a few months to really make sure that the things on this list are worthy to be shared. And I would say, let's dive right in with the first thing that changed so much for me when I learned about this. And it's that our brain is always trying to prove itself right. So it's working really hard to kind of confirm what it thinks who we are. So if we are telling ourselves, I'm not good enough, our brain is constantly looking for proof that we're not good enough. If we're telling ourselves, I'm capable, I can do this, our brain looks for proof that we can do this, that we're capable. And knowing that really makes it so clear that the most important thing we can do is to stop talking negatively about ourselves, to neglect compliments, to downplay our achievements, or to minimize our worth. So, since I learned this, I've been really trying as best as I can to talk kind about myself when I'm talking to others, but also when I'm talking to myself. And obviously, this is super challenging, especially if you've been used to talking bad about yourself constantly, and that's just somehow become so normal. I think especially also for women, and especially also this not downplaying your achievements. So this definitely takes so much practice to change that, but I think the first step is always awareness. So whenever I become aware of saying something super negative about myself, I really try to immediately kind of turn it around and frame it in a more positive way, or tell myself, that's not true. You can do this, or that's complete bullshit. You are more than good enough. So things like that. So really starting to notice that self-talk that is going on, and especially also if someone gives you a compliment. All you have to do there is to say, thank you so much. Nothing else. Because I, for the longest time, feel like I would always be like, oh my God, you really think so? If someone would, for example, say, oh, your hair looks so nice today, I would be like, what? No, it's really not nice at all at the moment, or something like that. And that's just so stupid. We should just be like, that's so kind of you. Thank you so much. Okay. So if that's not what you're doing already, that's what we're going to do from now on. And what this, by the way, also means is that we have to be our own biggest supporters and the person in our life that believes in ourselves the most. I think it's something so normal to kind of rely on outside confirmation and just someone from the outside to encourage us or to tell us that we are capable and that we can do something. And to me, I really realized that there is nothing more important than that I become that person for myself, because no one else is ever going to care more about my success or my life or how happy I am than me. I think not even our parents, even though, of course, they love us so much, they're not living our lives. So relying on that outside encouragement or approval or belief just makes us so dependent on that, because then we're always going to need that, right? So learning to become that person for yourself, to me, has become absolutely invaluable. And it just really does start with our self-talk and noticing, how are we thinking about ourselves and how are we talking to ourselves. Number 2 is a quote I will never, ever forget. I remember so clearly when I read it for the first time. I think it was on Pinterest where I saw it, and it hit me so deeply. And it says, there are people out there with less the talent you have who are doing what you want to do because they just went for it. This to me is just really such a powerful reminder that it's not about talent. Talent is kind of like the least important factor, because it all comes down to doing what it is that you want to do and just going for it, because over time we will automatically get better. There's no other way to improve than just to do it. And I think the big thing is that when we see someone else doing something that we would really like to do and we kind of look up to them, in our mind, we feel like they're in some sort of way special. They have something that we do not have. And the only thing that they have that we don't is experience. They've just been doing it for a very long time, probably, and just been having a lot of practice over the years. And I think that's kind of like a trap that we sometimes fall into, that we compare our level 1 with someone else's level 10. When we're just starting out, we look at someone who's been doing it for such a long time and who had just a chance to improve, to make mistakes, to get better and better and better. And then we kind of think it's magic because so often we don't see where they started. I think that's kind of like the big problems with social media, that we don't see oftentimes all the behind the scenes and we just see the end result. So rarely, I think, we get to see where someone started or what they had to go through or all the failures they maybe also experienced, but we just see that kind of glorious end result. And that's then what we kind of expect and what we measure ourselves against. And so to me, that's just really become one of the biggest reminders that we're all the same. There's no one that is in some sort of way more special than you, and that's why they achieved something and you will never be able to achieve that. That is simply not true. Yes, of course, someone can maybe be a bit more talented and that can maybe play a little bit of a role, but I think really over the long term, that factor gets smaller and smaller and smaller because, for example, things like consistency and showing up and having the courage are so much more important, especially in the long run. And one of the best books that I've ever read, and that fits really exactly into that quote, it's called Grit by Angela Duckworth. And she did so much research on that whole topic and found out that grit, so kind of really willpower and effort and consistency over the long run, is so much more important than talent and just really determines your success and achieving your goals. So, especially if there's something you want to do and you just keep talking yourself out of it and you keep telling yourself that you can do it and everyone else is so much better and you don't have what it takes, I hope this is your reminder that there is nothing like you don't have what it takes. You have all that it takes. The only thing missing is you getting started because that's where you're going to learn and where you're going to improve and get to where you want to be. Now, I have an even more powerful quote for you, which is probably really my all time favorite because it just really flipped such a switch in my brain and changed my whole perspective on life. It's a quote by Brianna Wiest, and it says, "Someone else receiving success doesn't make you any less successful. Someone else receiving love doesn't take any love away from you." I think really from a very early age, actually, we are being trained that we're in competition with everyone else and that there's not enough for everyone and that we kind of really have to fight for everything. So it's just really this total lack mindset, just this really strong belief that there is not enough. And especially keeping in mind the first life lesson about our brain always trying to prove itself right. If we are so convinced that there is not enough, that's also all we see. And the opposite of a lack mindset is an abundance mindset. So, this realization that there is more than enough for everyone. And if that's what we believe, then it's also what we're going to see, right? That's what we're going to experience. And I know it always sounds so spiritual, but we really attract what we focus on. So, adopting an abundance mindset to me has been, really one of the most transforming mindset shifts. But again, I actually think it's a really, really challenging one, especially if you've just been trained over the years to think the exact opposite way. And something I find so fascinating in this context is the emotion of envy, because envy is basically seeing someone have something that you really want as well. And I think there's a very negative connotation around envy, right? Like you shouldn't feel envious. It's a bad thing to feel envious and like a very bad sort of character trait. But I actually think it's one of the most powerful things ever, but we kind of have to reframe it. First of all, we have to realize that it's such a strong sign of what it is that you want, especially if you are someone who maybe struggles with figuring out what you want in life or what kind of your biggest dreams or goals are. Use envy. Look at other people, and whenever you feel like, oh, I really wish that was me, it's kind of like a compass towards what it is that you want. The next thing is to realize that whenever someone has something you would like as well, it does not mean that you can't have it, because there's more than enough for everyone, right? All it means is that it's possible for you as well, which I think is such a powerful thing to think about, is that, oh, they can have it, then I can have it too. There's no reason why you couldn't have that as well, right? So, really adopting that mindset. And one of the best ways to practice this, in my opinion, is that whenever you feel envious or when you see someone being or having exactly what it is that you also want to be or have, and they're successful with it or happy about it, to be as happy for them as you can possibly be and really celebrate with them and just getting yourself into an emotional state where you can be so happy for them while realizing it's also possible for you. And I strongly believe you are going to attract so much more of what you want with that kind of mindset. One of my favorite podcasts is the Huberman Lab podcast, and life lesson number 4 is something I learned from Dr. Huberman, and it really changed my whole perspective around doing hard things and making yourself be uncomfortable, because he said, doing hard things is the only thing that makes it easier to do hard things. This is so fascinating to me because we have an area in our brain called the anterior mid cingulate cortex. And this area is kind of like a muscle. And the way we can train this muscle is doing hard things. So, whenever you do something you really don't feel like doing at all, let's say you're going to the gym and it's the last thing you want to do. All you want to do is lay on the couch, but you get yourself up, you go to the gym, you do your workout. You are strengthening your anterior midcingulate cortex. And the stronger this area in the brain is, the easier it is to do hard things because it's like our willpower muscle. For a long time, there was this myth that willpower is kind of like a depleting resource. So the more you use it, the less you have of it. And this is so wrong. It's actually kind of like the opposite, that the more you use it, the stronger it makes you over time. So, what this means is that we want to do hard things as often as possible. And the really important thing is that it needs to be something you really do not want to do. So, for example, it doesn't count if going to the gym and doing a workout is something you actually really enjoy and you really feel like doing it and it kind of makes you really happy and you're excited about it. It doesn't count because it has to be something you don't feel like doing at all. And obviously, that's kind of really challenging. But I think knowing that already somehow to me makes it easier because it's really like, wow, the benefit is kind of double because you're doing something that's really good for you and it's going to make it easier in the long run. So always remember that when you have zero motivation and you don't want to do it, go out and do it. Life lesson number 5 to me has become one of the most important reminders of all, and it's that no one's life is as good as it looks online, which I know is something super obvious. We kind of all know that. But then on the other hand, do we really? Does our subconscious mind know? Because whenever we're on social media, we kind of know, yeah, it's a highlight reel. It's everyone putting out their best selves and showing the 1% of their life that is great. We know that. And I think also over the years, especially kind of recently, it's become a lot more trendy also to show low moments and to really show yourself being very vulnerable or whenever you're sad or any hardships you're going through. So that's definitely getting more and more. But I think still, it's really crazy just how much of this curated highlight social media is. And reminding yourself of that constantly is, I think, really so crucial because it's just so easy to think that someone else's life is really like they show it is on social media. And if I, for example, also look at my own social media behavior, I would say that probably the last year has been one of the most challenging of my entire life. And I have shared none of that on any of my accounts, like none of it. There were days where I was so sad, and the story you would see on my Instagram was me smiling into the camera, because it's so easy to just show the one moment of your day where you kind of put on a good face or where everything seems normal or perfect. I'm, by the way, going to share a lot more about what exactly has been going on in my life the last months, probably in one of the next episodes. But, anyways, I just really want to say again to remind yourself that no one's life is as good as it looks online. Oh, by the way, I think I forgot to say that we're only going to do 15 life lessons in this episode and then 15 next week. So splitting this into 2 parts because 30 is actually quite a lot. Anyways, Life lesson number 6. Reading is one of the best investments of time ever, and you should definitely buy a Kindle. To me, having a Kindle has changed my reading so much. I feel like I'm reading so much more since I got a Kindle because, in so many ways, it's just amazing. I think, first of all, taking your Kindle so easily everywhere and having it with you at all times instead of deciding what book am I going to bring, and then it's kind of heavy and so on. The other thing is that I love that you can get the book previews or like the beginning of the book to see if you like it. So you can download it for free, a sample. Yeah, that's what it's called. So downloading a book sample and trying it out and seeing if you like it and if you want to continue reading it before you buy it. And then also, it's one of the best ways to find new books because it recommends books based on your reading behavior and so on. So yeah, I just love my Kindle. I'm going to link it for you down below. And something really important I realized for myself is that it doesn't matter at all how many books you read. I think sometimes people pride themselves by saying, oh my God, I read 20 books this year, or I read one book a month, or something like that. And to me, I couldn't care less about that because I think it's so much more important to really internalize what you're reading and to read it properly and maybe read it again and again to really make sure you are taking everything you learned with you, because in the end, whatever you're learning from a book, the most important part is to apply it. And I think the more we really make sure we understand it and we have it on our mind, the easier it is to then also kind of bring it into our life and bring it into action. And there are books I have read, I don't know, maybe 5 times and underlined stuff and written stuff down and just been really kind of workshopping it and thoroughly going through it to make sure that I don't forget about it again. Because, of course, there's so much information we're consuming all the time that it's become super difficult to remember the good stuff. So, we want to make sure we do. And in the Kindle, by the way, you can also highlight stuff and then you can take all of them and kind of see them. And that makes it so much easier to kind of have them at one glance and go through them again and so on. I really, really love it. And this leads us perfectly into life lesson number 7. What you consume shapes you into who you are. What we watch, what we read, what we listen to, who we talk to, our whole environment and everything we are kind of exposed to has an impact on us. It's really not just what we eat that turns us into who we become. It's everything. And I think we cannot underestimate that. And we want to use that to our full advantage by exposing ourselves to things that help us improve, that help us become the versions of ourselves we really want to become. And I think, especially with things that we read or listen to or watch, it just really has the strongest impact. And so, for example, one thing I completely stopped doing is watching scary things or things that make me feel really anxious or just upset me a little bit, like anything scary, basically, because I would just really notice what a crazy impact it has on me and how I would see danger everywhere. Whenever I would, for example, see a thriller, the months after, I would get anxiety when I would see someone looking at me weirdly, you know? It just has such a strong impact, especially on our subconscious mind, because the thing is that our nervous system doesn't care if something is imagined or if it's real. So I think keeping that in mind with whatever it is you're consuming is really absolutely critical. Also, with the thing about who you're surrounding yourself with. There's this really famous saying that you become the people you surround yourself with most, or like the 5 people, I think, right? And there, what has been the most powerful learning for me is that if you, for example, don't have those 5 people around you that you would really like to be like, or that inspire you, or that you look up to, and they're kind of not in your direct surrounding, to find them online and to find them through podcasts, through YouTube or whatever, finding those people that really, really inspire you and then just consuming their content as much as you can, because that's just really going to have the strongest impact on the way you think, on the way you look at life, on your perspective, on everything, right? So that's really something that I've been doing a lot in the last years, is finding these people that I feel like inspire me and that I would really like to be more like, and then just consuming whatever it is that they're putting out or creating or writing about. And talking about people, this brings us to life lesson number 8. Because, in my opinion, the best people leave you feeling energized, inspired, and so much more alive. they don't leave you feeling drained or frustrated or insecure about yourself. To me, it's really become one of the strongest indicators how I feel after I spend time with someone. Do I feel super energized, and do I feel like they give me the feeling that I can do anything and that I just maybe have even more ideas and feel much more creative or just happier or just, more peaceful inside? That to me are just really the best people, and just those are the ones that I want to keep close and that I want to spend the most time with. Because when you do feel drained or not good about yourself after being with someone, that just really means that they are taking energy away from you. They're not giving you any energy, they're draining you, they're making you feel not good about yourself. I think there's basically nothing worse. So being really so mindful about how you're feeling around other people has become super important for me, and then just trying to minimize those interactions as much as you can. I think this can be especially tricky with people that you've maybe known your whole life, or maybe people that you think of as your closest friends because you just know them for so long. Just because you've known someone for a really long time doesn't mean that they have to be your friends forever, or doesn't mean you have to keep them super close forever. It doesn't, because people change, you change, they change. And I think just accepting that and then kind of navigating that is super important. And of course, super, super challenging, especially if it's maybe someone that still really wants to hang out a lot with you. But I think you owe it to yourself that if someone doesn't make you feel good about yourself, or pulls you down, or makes you feel maybe also stupid about the goals and dreams that you have or the things you want to do, you fully owe it to yourself to minimize that. And you don't owe anything to them. You owe so much more to you than you do to them. To always remember that. When I was younger, I swear to you, I was the least confident person ever. I was so deeply insecure in myself and just the biggest people pleaser ever, and just, yeah, really zero self confidence. And over the last years, I was really able to change that a lot and to build up that confidence in myself and strengthen it. And the number one thing that was just really the key in that is that I was sticking to the promises I made to myself. And whatever I said I'm going to do, I did it. Like, okay, not everything, but like most of the things I would say I did. And just really showing up for myself and prioritizing those promises that I make to myself over anything else. Because if you don't stick to the things you say to yourself, how should you trust yourself, right? How should you build confidence in yourself? Because you're literally telling yourself, I don't prioritize my own word and I'm not sticking to my own word. And so, doing your absolute best to do the things that you told yourself you were going to do is going to prove to yourself that you are so capable of whatever you set yourself up for, and that you can totally do it. And I think it's really 1,000 times more powerful than repeating affirmations to yourself that you can do it or whatever it is. Doing it is the thing that proves it to you. And acting in the way of the person you want to be is, to me, just really the most powerful way to also tell our brain who you are, bringing us back to the very first life lesson, right? We want to be so clear to our brain about the person that we are, so that our brain searches for confirmation about that everywhere. So the most important rule is definitely to always, always stick to the promises you make to yourself. I would really know if you experience this as well. Definitely let me know in the comments. But for me, whenever I go through my camera roll and I see videos or photos of myself from, for example, 2 years ago, I think to myself, oh, wow, that was such a good time. And I had so much fun. And oh, I wish I could go back to that moment, or I wish I could kind of relive that time I had back then. And then realizing that at that time, I wasn't thinking like that at all. And I was probably worrying about something or upset about something, where now I'm like, why wasn't I the happiest person in the world? Because everything was so good and everything was fine. And of course, our brain is always kind of minimizing bad things that happen, or kind of bad memories. Like, for example, when you break up with someone or you get out of a bad relationship, your brain remembers the good moments much more than the bad moments. Why, in hindsight, we think, oh, it actually wasn't that bad. And so, of course, I know that when I look at these pictures, I'm also like, I maybe forget a few things. But overall, I think it's really crazy how we don't realize in the moment how good the moment is, and how overall I know for myself that I've always had this really strong tendency of waiting for life to begin, and this kind of big moment where I feel like, okay, now it starts and now everything is great, and postponing my happiness. So saying to myself, I'll be happy when, and whenever this and that happens, that's when I'll be really happy. And that's kind of like really when life will begin. So, life lesson number 11 is to stop waiting for life to begin. And I want to read another quote to you by another quote by Brianna Wiest. I hope you do not spend your years just waiting for your life to begin. This is not the practice run. This is not the preview. This is it. And this just really has become so important to me to remind myself that life is happening right here, right now. It's not going to start in a few months or years. It's now. It's now or never, kind of like. And so I think definitely one of the most important things is to find gratitude for the small moments, and every day find something you're grateful for, and appreciating everything, and remembering that it could be gone any moment and all we have is now, not saving anything for later. Okay, that maybe sounds a bit reckless, so maybe not in terms of money, but overall, just don't save your favorite dress for an occasion that will maybe never come. Wear it now. Don't save that vacation you really want to do for some point in the future where maybe you don't want to even do that trip anymore. You know what I mean? So, realizing that now is all we have, which sounds so cliche, but it's kind of true. So, now is all we have. Life lesson number 12 is something I already talked a bit about in my first episode, which was all about my life story, because this has been, of all of them, definitely the biggest life lesson I've ever learned. And that was the one thing that transformed my whole entire life. And that was to take radical responsibility for my life, to realize it's up to no one else but me. And what that also definitely means to me is that I had to stop lying to myself. I had to become so painfully honest to myself about my life, about my behaviors, about my habits, about everything. Because I really think that one of the worst things we can do to ourselves is lying to ourselves and not being honest to ourselves just to make ourselves feel good. But nothing good is going to come from that, because all that does is it's going to keep us stuck in a place where we're maybe comfortable, where we're not willing to see the truth of how we're actually really not doing our best, and how we're not recognizing our potential and not living nearly up to what we could do. And I do think we owe it to ourselves to do the best we can. And so, therefore, one of the most important shifts that I started doing is always replacing I don't have time for this with it's not my priority. So instead of saying, "Ah, I really don't have time to meditate," replacing it with it's not my priority to meditate, because that reframes everything, right? Because if it's actually something you set as a non negotiable for yourself, or like a big goal, or something you know is so good for you, and maybe much more important than everything else you spend time on, it makes it clear to you that you are just not prioritizing it. So it's totally up to you. There's no excuse here, because I think we're all very good at making excuses. I definitely think I've been a total master in making excuses for why I didn't put in any effort into my health, and why I didn't take my situation more serious, or just, yeah, stop lying to myself and be more honest about just how shit I actually feel in my body, and just how bad my health actually is. So being 100% honest to myself has really literally changed everything for me. Life lesson number 13 is probably my favorite of all of them. And it's that sometimes when something doesn't work out, it's life protecting you. I really strongly believe this with my whole heart, that there is something better waiting. That's why it didn't work out. And the universe or God or whatever you believe in is protecting you. And I get goosebumps when I think about this. And also, I actually put a bit of research into this. It's so crazy, but there is science that shows that when you have that mindset of life is happening for you and you're being protected and guided, it allows your brain to heal and your nervous system to feel safe. So instead of saying, "Why is this happening to me?" saying, "What if this is happening for me?" And doing this is actually called cognitive reappraisal. So interpreting an event in a more constructive light. And this literally builds resilience. There are studies proving that. So those studies show that if you practice this cognitive reappraisal regularly, it decreases anxiety, it decreases depression, and it also decreases physiological stress. Because when you believe that life is protecting you and that you are guided and that everything happens for you and not against you, it activates our parasympathetic nervous system, so our rest and digest mode. So that in turn lowers our cortisol levels and brings our body back into regulation. Isn't that absolutely crazy? Just from this, one mindset shift and just truly fully believing that everything will work out for you. Life lesson number 14. Whenever you feel stressed, anxious, angry, upset, whatever negative emotion, walk it out or talk it out. Both of these things are so powerful. Instead of sitting alone at home and ruminating in your mind and having all of these emotions build up inside you, going for a walk or talking with someone are the best things you can do. And as you've maybe noticed, I love to look into the neuroscience behind it and kind of get an explanation for why that is. So I'm going to give you the explanation first for walking. Walking signals safety to our nervous system. So, by being in motion, we communicate to our body that we're safe and that everything is good and that the danger has passed and we're safe now because we're moving forward. And it also increases our dopamine, our serotonin, so these kind of feel good hormones, and it reduces our cortisol, so our stress levels. And when we're talking about what just happened or what is upsetting us, we are putting our feelings into words, and that calms our amygdala. It also helps to process our emotions. So, again, instead of building them up inside of us, we're actually kind of getting them out of the body and we make sense of what just happened. And if we don't do that, our emotions get stored in the body as unprocessed energy. So, yeah, we really want to try and get it out either with walking or talking, or in case you, for example, don't have someone to talk to, an amazing alternative is journal speak. And I quickly have to say, I have never tried this. I actually really want to, but I've just recently learned about this and it sounds amazing. And again, there's a lot of science around it that it's actually just as good as talking with someone to get out emotions and to also, again, processing what is happening and working with the feelings that we have inside our body. And what journal speak is, in case you didn't know, I didn't know. I'm actually curious if you knew about it. And how it works is that you take a piece of paper and for a certain amount of time, maybe 10 or 20 minutes or whatever feels good to you, you write out everything unfiltered, uncensored, whatever comes to your mind, no matter what grammar, like you just get it all out. Really, there's nothing holding you back. There are no rules, nothing. And then you are gonna burn it or rip it up or whatever. You're not gonna reread it. You're gonna kind of destroy it. So this is not meant to be read again. It's really the main purpose is to just get it out and release it and kind of really get it out of your mind and out of your body. And yeah, sounds really amazing. I'm definitely gonna try it and then I'm gonna report back to you. The last life lesson for today, life lesson number 15, which is actually something I feel like I had to learn many, many, many times, or I've been sent reminders many times to learn this lesson because I'm someone who constantly loses things, especially when traveling. I lose things all the time. And then, luckily, most of the times, I then find them again because they were just somewhere and I just didn't look properly or whatever. So, yeah, this happens to me all the time that I feel like, oh my God, I lost this. And then I get so upset and sad. And then I find it. And that's the crazy thing that then the moment I find it, I appreciate this thing a million times more. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so happy I have this thing back and this means so much to me and my life would have been horrible without this. Like literally it's the smallest things we're talking about here, but it's just crazy to me how much we are reminded what something means to us when we lose it. So life lesson number 15 is don't wait until you lose something to realize how much it mattered to you. And I've actually really set this as my number one goal to try as hard as I possibly can to not take anything for granted. Anything. Because that's just unfortunately really, I think, what happens with everything in life, right? That in the beginning, we really appreciate it and value it. And then the longer we have it, the more we take it for granted. I think also, especially the people in our lives. And that's, I think, the worst thing to take for granted. there's a story I quickly want to tell you that I somehow have to think about quite often. And it's an elderly couple that has been married for many, many years, and they're living together in their beautiful house with an amazing garden and their stunning kitchen. And every morning they come into the kitchen, the wife makes a coffee, and the husband makes his breakfast, which is porridge. So he puts oats into a bowl, and every time he does that, he is spilling oats onto the floor every single morning. And the wife just sees it and she gets so annoyed every time. And she's just like, why do you always spill your oats? And she's cleaning up after him every morning and just gets so frustrated about it. And then one day, her husband unfortunately dies. And the wife comes into the kitchen every morning and there are no oats on the floor. And all she can think about is how much she wishes that there were still oats on the floor that she could clean up after. And this story to me is somehow really such a powerful reminder, first of all, that I think we all get so upset about things that in the big picture just really do not matter at all. And just also how easy it is to forget how precious things are to us and how sad we would be if we wouldn't have them anymore. And it's actually also something I try to remind myself of whenever my husband does something that really annoys me, like not putting his dirty laundry into the laundry basket. Why are men not able to do this? I seriously don't get it. Like he would throw it all over the bathroom floor and I would go there and pick it all up and just, put it into the basket. I really feel like it's not too much to ask to do that, right? But anyways, every time that happens, I remind myself of that story and how sad I would be if there was no dirty laundry anymore. So, yeah, I really hope this life lesson resonated with you and hopefully all the others did as well. And then we're going to continue next week with 50 more life lessons. I can't wait. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next week. Bye.